crazy bad, and he's also dumb. Even though he's blind, he's not very fun. He has his own talk show. It's every gamer's dream. It's a crazy little talk show, and it's called Cookies and Cream.
Hey there, it's Cookies, and P-Cube struck gold when they released Tormented Souls back in 2021. With the design philosophy of Resident Evil combined with the aesthetics of a Tarantino horror flick, this indie team succeeded in establishing a brilliant IP to build off of. With unsettling environments magnified by the harsh lighting effects to makeshift combat imbued with its puzzle design, while I thought the first entry was perfect on its own, in comes a sequel that promises bigger and better for fans and newcomers alike. Does it stick the landing? Or has this series lost its way in the darkness? Let's find out. Following the events of the first game, Caroline and her sister Anna are seeking a normal life, but Anna's terrifying drawings continue to manifest into reality. With such horrific revelations, they venture to a South American chapel for a remedy to what they've witnessed. This turns out to be a trap, and our sister is abducted.
Hey! That's my sister! Take your hands off her!
Be at peace, both of you. This is a holy place. There must be no violence here.
After being captured by a twisted cult led by Mother Lucia, Caroline wakes up in a convent and must use her own supernatural abilities to navigate nightmares, switch between realities, and fight horrifying creatures to save her sister. The story in the first game was visually horrifying, with environmental storytelling opting to show the timeline of your fellow priest and his congregation as they all slowly descended into madness over their supernatural powers. And the sequel is no different. There are more cutscenes this time around, which is a welcome addition. Not 3-4 hours worth, but a sizable effort has been made to give more continuity between scenes. Think about the jump from Resident Evil 1 to Resident Evil 2 back in the day. There's more emphasis on the consistency in the game's writing. In the first, it felt like a bunch of ideas like time paradoxes through videotapes were thrown at a wall to see what would stick. However, the sequel fleshes out these ideas in a way that builds on the atmosphere and lore from the first entry. Characters are equally as memorable, and while the writing won't win any awards, the VAs do a stellar job in playing into the campy nature of the unknown.
Hey! What happened here?
This damn place can bring out the darkness in our hearts.
God. She's dead. Did you do this?
The law of God does not reach down here anymore. It was either her or me. And now, destiny brought you to me.
What are you talking about?
It's a simple premise. Evil cult kidnaps sister in a town that has been indoctrinated with inhuman powers. Go save her, kill them, yada yada yada, walk into the sunset. But its focus on environmental storytelling steals the show. Now in the first game, the cast was only 2 to 3 inhuman people, with a lot of characters that either died off screen or transformed, and with the visual storytelling in the first, you would pick up notes and read and learn a lot about these interesting characters you never saw. The sequel still keeps that mantra, however, the cast in person has almost doubled or tripled in size. Items and locations are still stuffed to the brim in detail, however, whether it's interactable cords placed together for a makeshift weapon, a burrow with a body being hidden in plain sight. Tormented Souls 2, it's a significant upgrade from the tale prior. Outside of the pacing, and here's my issue. In the first game, the pacing was sporadic, it was inconsistent throughout the game. However, in the sequel, they dial it back in. The first 2 acts are absolutely incredible. The setup of the cult and the antagonists right out the gate, to getting into the town and really seeing the full emphasis of what is going on and transpiring in this town. Now, the third act, it unfortunately falls into some gripes I had with the first game that does bring a lot of the speed to a halt. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something to keep in mind. However, graphically, the game shines, even if its performance takes a bit of a hit. From the corridors of a religious church to the labyrinths underneath, all interconnected by an expansive town for you to explore. Tormented Souls 2, it wastes no time in giving you pathways to visit in stunning fashion. Enemy designs are eerie, with a hyperfixation on body horror, that Tarantino grindhouse flair that works so well here, with a little bit of Clive Barker's religiousness on the side. And the staging of environments, it's some of the best in the genre. While I do have issues with objects routinely blending into plain sight, especially for puzzles, which forces you to go all over the place for no reason, what's worse is the constant frame rate dips. If you quick swap weapons or run into a field of multiple enemies and quickly turn into an ambush or a new scene, oh lordy, you are getting a slideshow, not a visual video game that you're playing. Now this may eventually be patched, but I will say it was disorientating enough to cause issues during gameplay. And this is coming from somebody that didn't have an issue with the frame drops in Metal Gear Solid Delta, showing that bigger does not necessarily mean everything is better. Which brings us to the breakdown of how you control this game. It's classic RE1 camera angles, except with more motion tricks akin to Code Veronica, where the camera pans with you. You explore the levels, searching for key items and puzzles to open up other parts of the map for progression. In between, you will have combat encounters in which you have makeshift weapons for melee, distance, and evasive maneuvers like stepping back to avoid swings. Some levels have interactable objects to dispose of enemies, which is also quite cool. And the game rewards you for thinking outside the box to conserve ammo, which is then a shame because you can soft lock yourself. I had multiple moments where my character would be unable to attack unless attacked first. It appears to only occur in the first third of the game, which is strange, and it does go away, but only if you take damage. However, in a game where you can die in a handful of hits, this is unfortunate, and it did cost me 2 ventures, totaling almost 90 minutes. Especially because the way you save is similar to the old school games, where you take a little ink ribbon, or not an ink ribbon, you take and then you do an audio recording where your character actually talks about previous instances in the plot. It's really cool, it's interactable in a way that makes you feel engaged with it, and it keeps you consistent on what's actually happening.
A tape recorder. I've used one of these before. I'm gonna record my progress on this machine. And maybe someday, someone will hear this and find out what happened to me. My name is Caroline Walker. I came to this town to find help for my little sister, Anna. She does this thing where she draws terrifying images and somehow they become real. It was all a trap. A huge nun knocked me out, and now they've taken Anna. I woke up looking like a pincushion, stuck with these thick needles. These people are sick. I need to find my sister and get away from here fast. I'm heading to the Lady Chapel, the last place I saw Anna. Maybe I'll find some clue there.
Now, the combat itself does feel pretty good in the 90s era jank kind of way. However, the puzzles this time around are some of the best in the genre. Dare I say, it's genre defining. Early on, the game eases you into how objects in different realities will interact, and there were at least half a dozen aha moments within my first playthrough that did not exist before. Now, the first game had pacing issues with its puzzles, where 80% of the game was puzzles on puzzles, and there was about 20% time left for combat. The problem there is that there's so many puzzles and pieces that interchanged with each other that a lot of the game's runtime was you just running around empty hallways, not really sure what to do, for much longer than you should be. The margin here, it's significantly better, but not without its own faults. See, the game again takes the RE2 from RE1 approach, where it's closer to, say, 60% puzzles, 40% action. The balance here is significantly better. However, the levels are significantly larger, and the puzzle items are spread across a wide range of rooms, meaning backtracking makes up, again, a significant portion of this game. Now, there are some moments that will play with you in creative ways. For example, on top of the split realities and memories, you can explore darkness as a force. However, it will consume you and kill you off, meaning light is the most useful tool. One instance had us backtracking through an area as all the lights begin to shut down. Someone pulls the lever and is cutting power, turning a normal jog into a tense-filled event to find a way out before hitting that game over screen. This moment is awesome, or other instances where you get ambushed in a town by, sailing with a gun, or even spider creatures that come from the ceiling. It would have been nice to see more dynamic events during the exploration, as the levels are filled full to the brim with untapped potential. There's so much beauty in the levels, each scene is expertly crafted. There's just not enough variety there to keep it engaging through the game's runtime. Now, I really do like Tormented Souls 2. It sounds like I'm hitting it quite hard, but that's because it's one of the most impressive indie titles I've seen. QTube took what made the first resonate with its niche audience and elevated its best sections. The story is easier to follow with more consistency in its writing and set pieces. The game has a stronger balance between combat, puzzles, and exploration that fuel the title's horrifying gameplay loop. The environments are brilliant, and the town leaves a lasting impression far after the credits roll. In pursuing a much larger vision, some of the indie cracks do form up, unfortunately. Numerous game-affecting bugs and performance issues plague this title. The pacing during the third act of the adventure, it does tank with the backtracking portion that runs out of tricks before the credits roll, lacking in the tight and recognizable design of areas in some of the genre's best. It's much easier to get lost here because while the flow is pretty consistent from a design perspective, it all kind of starts bleeding together in ways that aren't just unsettling, but kind of unforgiving. All that being said, this is still a quality investment for horror enthusiasts looking for some scares this Halloween, especially at $25. The game is a blast. If I'm comparing it so much to the elites, then you know you have something special on your hands. I would recommend picking this up if you're in the mood, as long as you can temper expectations with performance and some odd bloat during a handful of treks in the journey. Hopefully we'll be able to see a third entry in the series to really pull all the ideas together and make a cohesive conclusion for one of horror's most underappreciated protagonists. 4 shocking cold axe wielding maniacs out of 5. Have you played Tormented Souls 2? Are you interested in picking it up? Comment below and let me know the vibes. As always, this is your boy Cookies, signing off.